Hi, everyone. Welcome to Concession Impressions, the podcast where we review a movie right after seeing it. I am your host, Michelangelo, and I am joined, as always, with...
Me, Charles Halbeck. And today we have a special guest.
Yes.
Stay tuned for the interview that will appear at some point in this podcast.
Yes. It'll be coming a little... We're just setting up... we're going to have that in a little bit, so just stay tuned. But today we're going to be reviewing Black Adam, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Let's get into it. Let's jump into it. Black Adam is a DC superhero movie with a total runtime of 204 minutes. It follows the character Black Adam, who is kind of a anti-hero type character that is a offshoot of the Shazam characters.
I think he's somehow connected to the whole Shazam wizarding universe. But it's never directly stated exactly how in this, other than we see the same characters that gave Shazam his powers give Black Adam his powers in this movie.
I actually have a question for you first, Chase.
Mm-hmm.
How much of the DC universe do you know about?
So I am less familiar with DC than I am with Marvel. I just prefer Marvel characters usually, because DC and Marvel have this kind of varying ideology for how to approach superhero films, and I just prefer Marvel's ideology, where they're kind of normal people first, then superheroes, whereas DC is more like these gods walking among mortals kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And they typically, their heroes kind of represent concepts more than they represent like actual characters. And I find actual characters more interesting personally.
Yeah, but I think that was kind of the point of Marvel. Because I remember reading in a few interviews that, like, for instance, Spider-Man's character, there wasn't like a boy superhero who had to figure out school and bullies, and like at the time it was like a new thing. It's like, oh, there's this kid and you're following his normal school life and he's also a superhero.
Yeah.
And I think like maybe Marvel was kind of going against the grain, and now that's kind of the major kind of thing, the mainstream. But I think, yeah, I agree with you that the DC universe, there's so many, and there is so many like godlike powered people, like Superman, Black Adam, Shazam, the Dr. Future, whatever his name was.
Dr. Fate.
There's like so many like kind of OP, overpowered characters, I feel like, in the DC universe.
And because of that, the fights end up kind of being a little strange, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
Not Doctor Strange.
Not Doctor Strange.
That's Marvel.
They end up lacking tension, I find.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's only so much, big, massive punch that does nothing to another character that you can see before it becomes, like, kind of boring. And so the only way to build tension is then to, like, basically endanger other characters who aren't immortals. And that's where you get the problem of, like, fridging, which is a term that DC basically coins, where they kill characters, usually women characters, who are the love interests of these gods. And it refers to a classic comic book where in, like, the first chapter, a girlfriend of a superhero is fridged, where she's found dead in a fridge.
Yeah. Actually, going off that, and this is going to be tying into the movie because of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but we recently reviewed Dragon Ball, Superhero, and you said that the movie felt like a WWE match. Do you think DC movies also feel like a WWE match, except where the audience gets involved in the fight of the WWE match?
That's a very interesting point. I had never thought about it that way, but yeah.
It's not like that power grab of, like, in Dragon Ball, it's like fight, get a new power, win. So, like, becoming stronger. But this movie is literally like two strong people just punching each other over and over again.
Right.
Until the one everyone's rooting for wins, right?
Right.
Isn't that
Until
how
the
WWE
ideology
wins?
that they represent wins out.
Yeah.
Which that's one of the major flaws for me of this movie is the inconsistent ideology and the narrative building, I think, destroys any coherent ideology by the end of it.
For those who are coming to watch a
fight, punch, battle.
WWE match kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
I think they would enjoy it.
Sure.
And especially DC fans, I think would enjoy it. You kind of gave your opinion already, I guess, but would you recommend people to go watch this film?
So for our scoop metric,
Yes.
I think
ice cream
I think
metric.
it's a 1 scoop for me. That like I kind of enjoyed myself. You know, I am one of those people who can get into just watching kind of fun graphics and fun characters, especially very charismatic characters, which this movie does have. Is you know, all the actors are very charismatic, I found. And just kind of watching them kind of dance on screen.
Yeah.
I can get into that. I think it isn't a very intellectual film. I don't think it's, you know, going to be to everybody's taste. Although I think actually you put it best when you compared it to kind of WWE, that it's more or less just, you know, about building tension between two characters that you kind of like and watching them duke it out until one wins for whatever reason. I think that's where this movie for me has its biggest flaws and why it won't be something that like stands the test of time is because it lacks a shit ton of tension. It has almost no tension throughout.
I mean, yeah, I feel like, I don't know, I don't want to use this argument in its favor, but I feel like, oh, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't like feel right, it kind of just feels like a CGI slugfest. But
especially towards the end.
yeah, but I'm like, oh, but it's a superhero film. Like, what do you expect? You're not gonna watch like a boxing match and thinking like, so when are they gonna sit down and talk about like, you know, philosophy or something like that? You know, like that's not gonna happen, right? You're going to watch the fight, pretty much, right? But I think is at the same time, I don't want to use that argument because there's been since then, there has been so many like good superhero films.
Yeah.
Which I feel like it's not an excuse anymore. Like, you can make a great superhero film that doesn't just rely on just CGI fighting.
And that has a coherent ideological message. Not necessarily, it doesn't even have to be an ideological message. It can just be a coherent theme.
I didn't get my scoop thing in there, so...
Sorry.
No worries. I wanted to make that point. Even saying that, I would agree with you that I also would give it a 1 scoop. Mainly, I would also say go watch it in theaters. Because I think, I don't know if you agree with me, Chase, but there's something, I think, special about seeing like a superhero film in theaters. There's something about the atmosphere of going to see a superhero film that I would suggest going to watch it in theaters.
And the crowd.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point.
And getting back to your point about the WWE comparison, I think is weirdly very apt. And I know it's kind of my original point from another movie.
Yeah, I'm just stealing your ideas and repurposing them, Chase.
I don't mean to like put my own idea on a pedestal, but I think this type of movie is like being in a crowd at a WWE match where the crowd itself is a character and you not watch them, but you join in on them cheering or being saddened when a character nearly dies or does die or seeing them victorious.
Yeah, like you kind of get swept up with everyone else in the crowd, and it definitely feeds to the experience of watching it in theaters. But
100%.
Yeah, so let's just let's take a break and let's jump right into the spoiler zone.
We should have a spoiler zone thing. The spoiler zone.
From here on out, spoiler warning, and I want to say specifically spoiler warning because superhero films are the one film specifically that I don't want to get spoiled. A lot of time that's like the main reason you're going to watch the movie kind of thing. Like the spoiler, like the special little something that happens that makes it more interesting because you kind of know the superhero's kind of going to win. They're going to fight the bad guy. That's going to happen. So the little extra things are the things you little sweetness after your meal you like to eat. The dessert for you. Let's get into it. You have been warned.
And remember, The Rock is a part of this episode.
Yeah.
And he wants you to listen.
Yeah, he'll rock you. Is that what he said? Is that his saying?
No, I don't think so. I guess for me, there were kind of two main things that really hindered the movie, the enjoyment of this movie for me, which is the inability to properly set up anything and pay it off properly, and then the really poorly managed tone of the movie.
Yeah, it was like dark, but then not dark.
Right.
His introduction is so dark, and he's like killing people and blowing them up, literally putting grenades in their mouths. But then like the little boy is just like, oh, you have to have a catchphrase, and he immediately is just like, all right, I'm gonna go along with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely agree with you.
Also the jokes. I think jokes are a great tool to use in a really dark story to like refine the tone. This movie just throws them in randomly.
I will say that one of the funnier parts of the movie was when the brother comes and he's like, don't worry, I can't die. I'm gonna be the future says I'm gonna be killed by electricity, so as long as I stay away, I'll be fine. He runs into like the horde of zombies.
And the fact that he's an electrician.
Yeah, that's true. That's like a double joke. But I think that was like a funny part. And then there's other parts that are just like kind of cringy.
Atom Smasher. Every time he was on screen was awful.
So like when Cyclone and Atom Smasher were talking, and she's just like, yeah, when I was a kid, I was abducted by a scientist, and he put nanobots into my body and gave me my powers, and then she explains for like 30 seconds of how she got her powers. Like, what is this line of dialogue
peak
right here?
Cringe. And this is another this is a part of the setups and payoffs problem, is they don't set up any of the characters properly, except for maybe Black Adam. I think is possibly a decent setup, but doesn't pay off properly, in my opinion. But the way they introduce every other character is literally through an info dump, dialogue heavy, like Zoom call.
Yeah. You're gonna go alone? No, I'm gonna bring cuts to this person, but she's just a little girl. Don't worry, I'm also gonna bring cuts to this character. But you're missing the old experienced person. Okay, cut to this other character. It's like, and also, sorry, I was trying to say, they introduce them. They literally don't explain them.
They say, "Oh, she's a cyclone in a little girl or something like that." They give that, and then they don't show how, like, at what stage their character is in terms of like personal development. Like we know nothing about the character of Cyclone at all. We know a little bit more about Atom Smasher because we got that grandfather moment.
Yeah.
But which isn't it like almost exactly a ripoff of how they introduced Ant-Man? Like so similar, because he literally gets a suit in the same way, right? From an old man, not his grandfather, but the Wasp's grandfather. It's like just too similar.
I mean,
this movie,
I feel like Atom Smasher was a combination of Deadpool and Spider-Man. Because he was like, the suit's very similar to Deadpool's, first of all. But also, like, he's kind of like that comic kind of character, but he has that goofiness of Spider-Man.
Yeah. I think Spider-Man and Ant-Man together could be better.
Actually, yeah. Maybe less Deadpool-y because he's not
actually effective.
Yeah, or that. He's Ant-Man and Spider-Man rolled into one young boy.
This teenage hero that hasn't quite mastered his own powers.
Not just that was cringy, those points, but the editing was just... There was a conversation where the Dr. Fate stops the mother for the crown, and she's like, why are you talking to me? Because you guys need to help, like, we need to stop Black Adam, and like he's just being good, so just like you guys gotta just talk to each other. I was counting in the film, there was like 22 cuts for this like minute long conversation.
See, I didn't even notice that. I was too focused on how that conversation was clearly meant to be an allusion to our handling of the Middle East. This whole thing is a terrible metaphor for the Middle East.
It does, because they even made the joke or like the comment of, in modern society, you should treat your captives nicer than anything or something like that.
Yeah.
I forgot what it was, but
Treat them with respect or whatever. And then the little kid, who I actually found him quite charming, the Amen character.
really, I think he was the worst part of the film.
Really? I found him to be kind of
hated
funny.
him.
I didn't think he was great, like, in terms of setting him up for future films, because clearly they're setting him up for, like, some kind of hero's journey, I think.
Possibly.
They gave him a literal fucking cape. But I enjoyed his random comments about imperialism that would come up out of nowhere, just because I thought it was so cringe that it, like, made its way back around to being very funny.
Is it what, like, that deliverance of that line at the beginning of the film? It felt like his first take, and they're just like, nah, whatever. Like, we don't have time. Let's just go on with it.
Well, it's clear this kid doesn't know anything about imperialism or any of the words he's
He's
bringing
like,
up.
what is this called?
The superhero industrial complex.
Yeah,
he doesn't have a basis for that.
Second, though, what was the whole, like, 90s, he's like a random skater punk kid, and he's like, there's like a whole him like grinding through the city to escape bad guys. It was like,
I felt like that was a problem with the references this movie was pulling from, which it pulled from a bunch of early 2000s films, like superhero films specifically, like X-Men. Even we got our own version of the X-Jet.
Yeah.
And the Xavier Mansion.
Yeah.
Like, it looked identical to that.
Except you don't have, like, Wolverine there making fun of it.
There's no self-awareness.
I want to just really quickly say, since we're talking about the boy, another worst part of the film for me, the end of the film when the boy is like, everyone, let's give our spirit to the spirit bomb. I mean, the energy to Black Adam. That's a Dragon Ball reference. I guess you wouldn't understand it.
I didn't get it, no.
So in, like, Dragon Ball,
it.
everyone puts their hands up to give their strength to Goku to use his most
They did
powerful.
that in Harry Potter.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that whole thing. Everyone's like, but it was like the audio must have been bad or the take must have been bad, because they did, like, post ADR, like, re-recording of his voice for those lines.
Audio dialogue replacement, for those who don't know.
Yeah, and nice, thank you. He's supposed to be yelling out to this crowd of people, but he's like, everyone, give their strength. It looks, his performance in the movie is like he's screaming, but the ADR is just like him whispering this lines. And I don't know. I don't know if you noticed that.
Everyone in this movie spoke English perfectly.
Yeah.
For the most part. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
Especially if they're making this whole imperialist argument. It's just, I think this comes down to the writers and the director not having a very clear, thought out idea of what this movie is saying or attempting to say.
Yeah. And also it could lead into, like, the producers as well.
Not wanting to say anything as well, yeah. Also, The Rock probably doesn't want to say anything too particular because he does have political ambitions. This is something we know.
I know you have more things to say, but maybe save it for Twitter. Check out what Chase has to say on the Twitter feed at Filmmakers Cookbook.
It's Film Cookbook.
At Film Cookbook on Twitter. And also give us a follow on Instagram. You know, why not? You're already on the internet. We haven't given our concession impression. That's the whole name of the show. What is your concession impression best to worst ranking? You got number 1, peanut M&Ms. Number 2, popcorn. Number 3, hot dog. Number 4, Raisinettes. All right, Chase, which one do you give it?
Low popcorn.
Oh, that's actually better than I thought it was going to be.
What really changed my mind on it was when you compared it to, using my own analogy, WWE. Because I do think that's what it was attempting to do, is just kind of be an exciting film to watch, and it did hold my attention, and there wasn't, I didn't hate anybody in it. I didn't love anyone either, but, like, I think it was a decent night out. it leans more on the positive, so that's why I'm giving it a popcorn as opposed to maybe a hot dog.
Gotcha. Interesting. Okay, I am actually going to give it a hot dog.
Got it.
I think, again, it's maybe like a rock sausage dog.
Rock sausage dog.
You know.
Sounds awful.
But, you know, it was good. And I think also, speaking of The Rock, I know he's on, you're going to be talking to him, but I do think him in the film was maybe the best part for me.
Yes.
I think he was great. I do think a lot of the VFX was pretty well done. Like, it was heavy on the VFX, but I would say that a lot of them looked really nice. Again, to all those other points, it didn't... I feel like a superhero film can be so much more, and we've seen so much more from superhero films.
From DC heroes.
And even DC movies. And I feel like this is not an excuse. You can make something better. So I'm going to give it a hot dog, but I'm hoping that the next Black Adam or the next DC movie would be better, and I'm hoping to give it a popcorn or even a peanut M&M in the future, but currently I am giving it a hot dog. That's kind of it for our episode today. I'm going to kind of wrap it up here, but continue listening because we have a special guest. Finally, I know you've been waiting the entire episode and he didn't come on. I mean, what do you think? We can get him for a whole hour? No. We have him for just a few minutes, so welcome aboard Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Do you smell him coming?
Whoa, okay.
What is he cooking?
There we go. Okay. So, till next time, everyone, let's go into that interview. Woo! All right, just getting my Zoom ready here. Let's see if we can set this up. And, all right. So, I'm a little nervous. It's my pleasure to introduce the one, the only, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
All right, how you guys doing? You guys ready to see Black Adam?
Oh, yeah, we are.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Rock, this is your first foray into the DC universe, and we want to know, what is your vision for the DC universe and for Black Adam?
This has been a passion project of mine for the very first time we made the announcement that I was going to be Black Adam. It was 15 years ago. When you do watch the movie, I think you're going to love the spectacle, the VFX. I think you guys are also going to love the storytelling and what we wanted to do with Black Adam. We wanted to use Black Adam. We wanted to use this as an opportunity to launch not only one, not only 2, 3, 4, but 5 new superheroes.
You spent 15 years preparing for this role. What does Black Adam mean to you? What does he represent?
We wanted to establish Black Adam, as you guys will see, as the most powerful force on this planet. It also sets up and paying homage to the most powerful force in the entire universe. 15 years later, the whole idea about Black Adam and what Black Adam represents at the end of the day, what Black Adam represents is always listening to the fans. And that's what Black Adam represents.
Yeah, thank you for spending, I know you have like 40 movies coming out. Thank you for spending a little bit of time and just joining us on our podcast for this evening.
No, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Have a good week.
Thank you for listening.
Bye.
Bye.